Okay, today I think I'll do SimCom. I think today I will do voice for hearing people because really the focus for them. The topic though is about deaf people's rights. I like to say the deaf have civil rights to ASL. And I want to say that I've recognized that there's a lot of hearing parents with hearing babies that are using today American Sign Language to communicate early. And the reason is that doctors, scientists, have decided to encourage that behavior because they recommend it, because they know that signing is possible before you can talk. Which means a few things. First, it means that parents are able to communicate early with their baby if they need their diaper changed, or if they're hungry and need some food. Just sort of basic things like that. But also, it's a way to express without frustration when you're a baby and can't talk what your issue is. I remember, I'm weird. Shh, yeah, I'm weird. I remember before I could talk. And I remember being frustrated trying to communicate what my issue was because my mom would be changing my diapers and that was not the problem. She'd be guessing, oh, is he sleepy? And trying to put me in bed. And I didn't want to go to sleep. But my issues would have to go on this whole list of order of test this, test this, test this. If my mom and my grandma and my grandpa had signed with me, I could have signed before I could have talked. And I could have told them what the problem was. And that would have made me feel a whole lot better. The other thing that it does is it starts creating a bond between the parents and the families that are hearing and the baby. They start developing early this strong connection to their mom and their dad. And if they have brothers or sisters or grandparents or aunts and uncles and cousins, they will start developing a stronger relationship earlier. And that can be really important too, to know that you can trust that your parents and your family are there for you and they care for you. And another reason it's scientific is that doctors know, they know that sign language helps with early brain development. And why is that? Well, one reason is the more ways that you communicate and learn, the better your brain is going to be. You're creating neurons throughout your life. We know that now. You're not just born with them, no. You can create them even as a senior citizen. Okay, and they used to think you were born with a certain number. And they know now that's not true. But what is true is studies show from birth up until you're about 5 or 6, that's when you're learning the quickest. You're just picking it up. You're picking it up. And one thing you pick up is your family's language. And if they know 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, then you'll pick them all up. In the past, in America, a lot of kind of conservative type people thought that if you had, let's say, a father that knew German and a mother that was Irish, one of the two of them need to shut up and start using the other person's language, and otherwise you're going to confuse that baby. They're going to be mixing it all up. They're not going to know the structure correctly. They're not going to know which word goes with which. They're going to mix it all up. And, oh my gosh, then they can't communicate because they have no language. But in Europe, they know that's not true. It's not true. In Europe, there's the states, like the U.S. states, like Washington and Oregon, are so close together that people are driving back and forth all the time. They're traveling around. And so they need to learn other people's languages, not force them to one language, which is eugenics. Yes, so these ideas that we have in America today, a lot of them stem from a very hateful, false science called eugenics. And we really just need to be aware of that. That's what I'm doing today is I want to make you aware that are hearing people about the freedom and right for all children to have sign language. Doesn't matter what country they're from. It doesn't matter if they're hearing or labeled hard of hearing because they can talk and hear some, or if they're full profoundly deaf. It doesn't matter where on the whole spectrum they are. They have a right to sign language. I'm saying that. All kids have a right to sign language. Why am I saying that? First of all, you don't know if your kid later on is going to get hearing loss. They could be a military vet and lose hearing loss. As a senior citizen, they're probably going to have hearing loss. They could get a fever and have hearing loss, especially if you're an anti-vaxxer. If you are against vaccines, it's possible your kid could be deaf. It happens. Okay? So, I'm here to talk to you today about that word choice. Choice. That's an interesting word that's used politically today. I want to discuss that. I want you to seriously pay attention. A lot of times liberal people will say, women's choice. But I know that in France, their government had banned a pro-life video that showed positivity for having Down syndrome and that these babies thanked their moms for giving them life. And yes, the reason was they didn't want people to abort a baby when they had a test that said possibly they could have Down syndrome or some other kind of mental retardation or slowness or even other disabilities. But the funny thing is it backfired because when the government said we don't want women to not choose abortion, that made people that were for choice, who were pro-abortion, not pro-lifers, angry. Because why? As they explained, for a woman to make a choice if she wants to have an abortion or not, or maybe adopt out, or maybe keep the baby, she needs to have knowledge and resources of all the options and all the possibilities. And one of them is to know, oh, a Down syndrome baby could have a good life. They could be satisfied. They could contribute to society. And maybe they're not going to be an art teacher, but they could be in Hollywood being an actor. There was a man who had Down syndrome who was an actor here in America. So, hiding facts because you want to have an abortion or you want women to abort all Down syndrome babies, that upset all those women, the conservative and liberal both. Why? Because they didn't have all the facts to make that choice. They didn't have it. Well, what concerned me, I like how Jamie Herrera Butler, I like how she learned SCE here in Vancouver. Cat, get down. Ooh, you have to watch cats all the time. Anyways, stop that. Anyways, I'm watching you, woman. Get down. She knows better. She communicates good. We gesture, I sign, and I talk. And she's a cat. Your kids, they're worth more than that. So anyways, back to what I was saying. So parents, in order for them to make an informed choice, need to have all the facts in front of them. And all the resources provided with neutrality. Okay? And we all have our biases and our reasons for our strong feelings about different things. But a lot of times, people don't know all the facts, even if they have the feelings. So, I want to provide you some facts to think about when you hear something like what Jamie Herrera Butler said. So when I talked to her, I did a video I did a live feed video, and I can't unfortunately do that now because Facebook requires you to upgrade, and I cannot download the upgrade to my phone, and I can't do it to my computer, so I'm stuck. I cannot live feed. Sorry. Anyways, but I did a live feed video then of the Republican rally where I wanted to try to translate, I don't really want to say interpret because it's not perfect, but translate from their spoken English into more ASL. She decided she wanted to sign for herself, directly to the deaf community. Hey, good job. But one thing she said that concerns me is when I was talking to her, and it may have been before or after I had the video, is I talked about the rights for deaf kids to have ASL as a baby, and she said something like parent's choice, but she believes in parent's choice, and that is a key warning word to me that AGBell had been talking to her, warning her, the oralists that want people to lip read only. So here's a fact. Ready? 30% of English or other spoken languages have been scientifically shown to be able to be seen on the lips. So if a person is really good at lip reading, the best they 100% can do is 30%. 70% must be guessed. Now, there are patterns in speech. If you know me, you get an idea of the topics I talk about and my speech pattern. And if you live with me and you lip read, it's possible, because I don't have a mustache, you might be able to guess the next word I'm going to say. And it's possible that sentence right there just said, you kind of guessed, even as a hearing person, the next words I was going to say. And that's what it is reading minds. Not lip reading, mind reading. I want you to think about that. That's a fact. And if you don't believe me, if you think I'm lying to you, ask me, and I will show you a whole bunch of facts. I will cite it for you. I know what I'm talking about. I took an early interventions class at Gallaudet. My major was social work. Mine was government. I took linguistics classes. I took an audiology class. And I know what I'm talking about. This is my experience, and I can say I am an expert in this. I know what I'm talking about. But if you still don't believe me, I will show you facts that you cannot deny. Okay? So, fact number 1, 30% of English can be read on the lips, or even Spanish or Russian. That's it. 30% can be read on the lips. You are forcing people to mind read 70% of the time if you make them lip read, like what I'd be doing right now without SimCom. And SimCom is not giving equal access either. It isn't. Because, as you see right now, I'm skipping signs. By nature, you can't do 2 different languages at the same time. So they tried to create, to show kids what the structure of English was, a type of signing that used a whole bunch of English structure and added S and ing, that was their created thing, and they go past for ed, things like that. It's very complicated. I learned that first. And it's not a real language. And so you may meet people that use that, but it's not accessible either. It really is not. I'm just being honest with you. I learned it first, and I'm telling you, it is not easy, and it's not a real language. It is English, but it's English on the hands, and it is not equal to ASL. It is not. And so what I'm doing right now, SimCom, is not fair to deaf people. Okay? But I warn them, this video is not for them, even though it's about them. It's for you who do not sign. It's for hearing people. And this is going to be a long one, but pay attention. Because I'm not creating these videos for myself. I'm not doing this for myself. I'm not getting paid. So you need to ask, why am I telling you this? Because it's primary importance. It's an issue. I don't like when hearing people who think they know how to speak for us and are not involved in the deaf community, did not go to Gallaudet, they do not sign, they have nobody deaf in their family, will talk for us, and they don't know our issues. So I'm telling you an issue right now. You cannot say, oh, I know a person that lips read, they lip read great, they do perfectly. They're guessing really well. And in some situations, they're going to be totally lost. If you have a big group of people, they're not going to be able to communicate. How are they going to look at everybody's lips at the same time, huh? You have dim lighting like I have right now, it's tough. It is tough to see someone's lips if it's dark. If you have a glare on them, they can't see your lips. No, the fact is, 30%, that is under 1/3, can be lip read. Can be, if they're good. Doesn't mean a baby that was just born is going to be able to do that. That's what we're talking about, babies. Babies don't know English. They're not adults. They just were born. Language has no meaning to them. None. Whatever baby you have, a hearing or a deaf one, anywhere on the range, they have no idea of anything at this point. They are a complete open box. It is your responsibility as a parent to become educated, to become informed. And not all parents have a high IQ. Not all parents have a high school diploma. They don't. And not all parents are good parents. Some of them are addicts. People have been in prison. I'm just being honest with you. These people could have deaf babies. They could. But it is still their responsibility, if they're going to have this baby and raise it themselves, to raise them with providing them a first language. Now, I don't care if you give them 1, 2, 3, I don't care how many, but all people have a right to a first language. At least one. We have a thing that a lot of people use in social work, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. On the bottom level, it talks about the very basics. Like people that are homeless, they're going to be really concerned about their next meal. People that are really poor might be thinking about that also because they're going to be scared. They're not going to have food in a week when their food stamps run out. They might be scared. And so they're going to be searching and focusing on that. And if it's a kid, they might be thinking about, where am I going to sleep tonight? And will I have dinner tonight? Not focusing on, you have a science project that's due on Friday. That's secondary. It is not primary. It's down here somewhere. And so yes, it impacts people's ability to do other things if their basics are not fulfilled. But there's something that's usually not in that box that Maslow doesn't always have there, and that is acquiring a first language. It's missing, and that is a very basic right. It is a human civil right to acquire a first language. Who is responsible for giving the kid a language? Now, we could debate that some parents are going to say that teachers are responsible for providing education. The teachers will disagree with that, but there can be a debate on that, okay? And we can have a debate that it's Big Pharma or the doctor's responsibility to make sure the kid isn't sick, or to test and make sure if they're deaf, okay? And deaf is not sick, but just so you know, the medical world will label it sick. And yet, while we can debate if it's a parents or doctors on that, you cannot take the responsibility away from the parents at all when it comes to language acquisition. That is solely the responsibility of mom and dad. And if there's only one parent, whoever that is, that's your responsibility. And why is that your responsibility? If your kid is deprived of a language access, so they struggle their entire lives trying to catch up and create in their minds the ability to communicate clearly, they're not going to go to college. They're going to struggle in a job. Their bosses are going to say, you're not capable of being moved up the ladder. You can't communicate. We need someone who can communicate to do this job. So they're not going to be a supervisor. They're going to get low-paid jobs or no job at all. And they might end up being one of those people that are with the migrant workers trying to clear out a field because you refused to provide them full access, 100% access. Now, I want you to think about fairness here. What's fair? To a baby that was just born, to force them to guess 70% of what you're saying. Or to provide the baby with 100% access with no guesswork. Which one is fair? 30% access or 100% access? 30% or 100%? Which one is fair? This is fair. This is not fair. It's not fair. Now, that's simple, basic math. It's not fair. When science has proven it helps the cognitive development of hearing babies and the bond to be stronger with the baby and the families if they start signing right after birth. Why is it that oralists get pediatricians, ENT, early interventionists, audiologists to all warn parents, do not ever sign with your baby or they won't speak? First of all, I want you to think about something. Is it selfish of you to choose for your child to lip guess so that you can hear them say mama? So that you can benefit. I want you to think about that. Most parents refuse to learn sign language that have deaf kids. 90% of babies born in America are to parents who are hearing, and most hearing parents refuse to learn sign language to communicate with their deaf babies. But hearing parents of hearing babies are being encouraged. I want you to think about that. And so what's the opposite of cognitive development? Cognitive delay. That is what's happening to the deaf community. We're not born stupid. It's cognitive delay that is caused. It is caused by parents who refuse to sign with their babies because they're deaf. They are stealing their birthright, their deaf civil right to a first language. They're stealing it from them. And they're saying, if you are lucky and you're very smart, you can pick up by lip reading. So, I want you to think about this. If you're very bright and you're not provided everything fairly in life, might you succeed? Yes. It is possible for a baby to be a success by lip reading only, with no gestures, no signs, no cueing, nothing. It is possible. Now, again, let's do a little bit of statistics and a little bit of probabilities and stuff like that here. What % do you think of deaf and hard of hearing babies born in America are going to become fluent in speaking and writing and reading English and lip reading? Through lip reading only, with nothing else. It's not going to be a high %. And that's logical, right? It's not going to be a high %. Okay? Well, that's the issue we have here in America today and some other countries. Ever since the Malone Conference of 1880, when some hearing people with power decided they were going to have a debate without any deaf people present and decide for us worldwide how deaf children should learn. Alexander Graham Bell won. He won. And I know some people really like him, but they don't know all the facts about him. He was a proud eugenicist, and he said in a paper he published, he was scared of deaf people. He was involved heavily in the deaf community. He knew sign language. That's the irony. He knew sign language. But he decided, as a proud eugenicist, that there could be a competition, and it looked like maybe deaf people were having a lot of babies in the future. Maybe there'd be too many deaf children born, and maybe in the future they would take over high-paid CEO positions, President of the United States. We can't have that. We can't have that, right? The inferior deaf race. That's how he saw us. A competition of inferiors. Animals with animal language. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Pretty much the way that they talked about black people, Irish people, and Native Americans. So, deaf people were among that. And in America, they've done things like sterilize deaf people. And Hitler came to California to learn all about that. So I'm not going to go into that topic, but I want you to just think about where this idea of parental choice came from. It came from the exact same place abortion came from. It came from the exact same place that Hitler's ideas came from. It came from the exact same place as sterilization campaigns came from. And it was fear of us doing well. The point was to make sure we don't do well. The point of oralism was to make sure that only the brightest, only the people of the wealthy families, only the people who could possibly be the elites would be allowed to be successful, and they'd be a token to prove how great oralism is, to trick parents into not providing full access to their babies. We're here in the 21st century. Let's wake up. Wake up, people. Wake up. If you say that you support Bernie Sanders, don't you tell me about parents' choice when it comes to sign language for a deaf or hard of hearing baby. You can just shut up about that if you're a hearing person. Just shut up. I'm here to tell you. That is not appropriate. That is not appropriate. To provide a kid who is deaf or hard of hearing only lip guessing and not access to sign language and never ever let them socialize with other deaf families and deaf kids who sign, that is cultural deprivation, cultural theft, and language theft. You are purposely oppressing your baby. You are practicing autism on your own child. Wow, right? Now, I'm not saying that parents who decided for oralism are wicked. I'm not doing that. I'm not labeling you Hitler. I'm not calling you a Nazi. But I am saying that's where it came from. It came from a very evil place with very bad intentions, and some people can lip read, but most cannot. And if you completely refuse to provide early access to sign language, if it's out there for you, then that is your burden, your responsibility. You caused your children to have to really struggle to compete to see if they can overcome the barrier you created for them. You made the barrier. You created their disability. The disability is not being deaf. Because here's why. Parents who are deaf of many generations, clear on back, before before Milan Conference 1880, in the golden era where people were going to college and they were becoming successful adults. Back in that time, we see that those kids, they picked up ASL like that, just like hearing babies do speaking. They pick it up. And it's nature for them. They're visual people. They're not broken people, just like a left-handed person doesn't need to be forced to use their right. We used to do that, and maybe that was parents' choice. But we know better today, don't we? We know you can't do that. It's a trauma. It's a trauma for people that were left-handed forced to use the right, and they never were that good at it. Well, guess what? Person that tries to speak good for you probably is not going to if they're profoundly deaf, no matter what. They're not going to speak like a hearing person. It may thrill the mommy's emotions to hear the word mama, but you know what? If you provide your deaf baby sign language, they might by nature not really want to voice. That doesn't mean they can't learn later. You know? Matter of fact, they probably could do it at the same time. But the fact is, by nature, a person that is deaf is going to want, they're going to want to move their hands. They're going to want to be visual. They're a visual person. Just like a left-handed person uses their left hand, not the right. They're left by nature, not their right. They can use their right. It's just not going to be as strong. Well, a person who's deaf can talk usually. Usually they can. But it's not going to be their strongest asset. They have other assets that are stronger. And why not feed their skills? Why not appreciate their differences and say, okay, well, if cognitive development happens by communicating early and clearly, 100% accessible through sign language with a hearing baby, and it'll do the same thing with a deaf baby or a hard of hearing baby, why not provide that? Right? It's logical. It's a fact. And yet, I want you to think about this. When people say parents' choice, what they really mean is they don't really provide an option for parents to meet deaf families. There has not been set up a program with the deaf community to pay deaf families to be mentors to parents who are hearing who have a baby that was born deaf. Because, see, these people over here, they're multi-generational deaf. They are fluent level 5 ASLPI. They're far better than I am. And they know their culture like that, just like you know your culture. And what they could do for you is they can not only tutor you, though you should be provided classes for free too, I believe. Matter of fact, I think it should be required in school from kindergarten through 12th grade, English and American Sign Language. They're both America's languages that we use. Why not have both required? I challenge any allies that are out there to contact their senators and their House representatives to suggest that and encourage that. But I also would encourage people that are for lip reading and for speaking good and even for cochlear implants or hearing aids to be honest. Do your research and be honest. Isn't everything I just said true that only 30% can be seen on the lips? Isn't it true that you are forcing a kid, to, if they're only lip reading, to lip guess 70%? If you have a kid that's even deaf-blind, they can pick up sign language pro-tactile by touch. It's 100% accessible to deaf and deaf-blind and hard of hearing and hard of hearing low vision and all those other different diversity intersections. There's very few people that can't use sign language. I would say if you're born without both hands missing, that'd be different. I happen to know a girl who is deaf and she has one hand. She signs. I know her personally. She now, because she loves math, is working in Seattle with Boeing. But she was provided sign language by her hearing parents. And she's strong at English. So again, the time period for a baby to acquire fluency in a language is very short. And that's why a lot of oralists and big pharma want you to get a cochlear implant right away, because they want that baby to access it through, well, not really through the ear, more through the brain, but they want them to behave like a hearing person. They don't want them to have deaf culture. They don't want them to think that they are a minority person. They want them to think that they are a broken hearing person. And there's a lot of negative consequences to that. Why do parents not want their kids' first language to be sign language? That often, when you analyze it from a social work perspective, is because parents want to pass on the traditions and values and language of their own. I learned that in linguistics class. So parents are kind of in denial anyway, but then they want their baby to be the same as them. You know? It's kind of like not trying to be racist, but your baby turns out to be black, and the parents are white. What happened here? Well, they took back generations, just like a deaf baby could take back generations, and you got a black baby. And you think, oh, now my question is, would you try to bleach their skin and straighten their hair to make them look like you? Because you're so doggone embarrassed to have a kid that looks different? Okay? When you tell your kid that they need to be like you, but they're defective, it impacts them. If they're a left-handed person, you say, you stop using your left hand. Put the pen into your right hand, and now put the paper this way, and make sure, no, you're not angling it right. Come on. Practice, make perfect. It traumatizes them. When you tell a deaf kid or a hard of hearing kid that they are sub-hearing, they are below a normal hearing person. Matter of fact, the audiogram that the audiologist has is so eugenics. But one thing they will say, if you are just at the line or just above the line that they've created there, they say you are still within the normal hearing range. There's just so much baggage right there. Also, Alexander Graham Bell was who decibels were named after. He kind of created that one, and it's the only XY graph you will ever see that's flipped upside down. You take a look at it. 0 usually is at the bottom, and the numbers go up and to the side. This one goes down. 0 starts here, and it goes down. And the reason they did that was they didn't like people losing their hearing or being found to be hard of hearing or deaf, feeling that they were improving, feeling self-esteem, that it was going up. Up visually looks positive, like you're going up to heaven. Going down looks like you're going to hell. It looks like you're going to be in a grave down in the bottom of earth. It looks negative, and he wanted deafness to look like a loss of your self-esteem, a loss of your pride, and a loss of humanity. You're not a real human anymore. You are subhuman. And it is white supremacy, and that's why I call it hearing supremacy. And you could have been a part of this. Now, a lot of people try to make white middle-class men feel white guilt. I'm not trying to do that to you. I'm honestly not. But what I am trying to do is just make you aware to know things that you've seen and heard and learned from hearing people, how it could be very destructive to your children, to other people's children, to even deaf adults, deaf and hard of hearing people, and even people with hearing loss, like a military vet or senior citizen or a person got sick with a fever. Be very careful about that. I'm not language policing you. I'm just warning you that terms like hearing impaired is the same thing as saying white impaired. It is saying that You are not as good as me. You are defective, and you are beneath me. I am the superior type of being. You should have been like me, but because you're not, you're closer to an animal. And that is just like the Darwinian type of eugenics, where some people are more evolved than others. And their fear of people who look different. It's all related, man. It's all related. So I'm not telling you this long story to hear myself talk. Because I already know this. I don't need to say it. I don't need to say it. I'm saying it for a reason. I want you to think about when we talk about parental or even women's choice, it's not a choice if you are not provided with all the facts. I'm here to provide you some facts. And if your audiologist, your ENT, your pediatrician, or your early interventionist is not providing you the information I just gave to you, and they're saying that the only thing for you to do is never gesture, never sign with your baby who is hard of hearing or deaf, and get a hearing aid and a cochlear implant right away. Just speak. Make them read your lips. I want you to think about transferring to somebody else right away and reporting them as being autist. They are trying to prevent your child from being successful. There is a good chance if you obey them, your kid will not be an oral success. There's a better chance they'll be an oral failure. There's a whole bunch of them here in Vancouver that cannot get a job. It's not just because they can't socialize by talking and by listening. It's much more than that. It has to do that you gave them language deprivation so they're not even able to read a voter's pamphlet and vote. They're not able to read a college textbook and go to college and become a doctor. They're not capable, not because their brain don't work, but because they were language delayed, and that made cognitive development slow down and atrophied, and some of them never could catch up. That is totally unfair. That is a rigged race, and that's why autism is racism. It is unfair, totally, and it's to your own kids. Remember, most of these are born American citizens. They have the same rights as everyone else does. And one of those rights should be, you have a right to full access 100%, whatever that is. And if your access is sign language, well, good for you, because there's a good chance through visual or tactile, American Sign Language is going to be the best first language for your baby. And if we could get all the people that are going to kindergarten right now to start learning sign language and continue to do that, then if they become parents whose kid happens to be born deaf, because remember, 90% are born to hearing parents, there is a very good chance they're ready to communicate in sign language with their deaf or hard of hearing baby. And that could mean, like those other people that are multi-generation deaf, we could change it so that all kids born from hearing, hard of hearing, or deaf parents has 100% access through American Sign Language right after birth. They can learn directly from their parents how much they care about them, tell them their tradition, their family history, pass it down. And they can be proud of their last name, like I'm a Poland. They can be proud of being from your family. And I have personally seen videos of real people where the mother chose to learn sign language and give it to their deaf daughter, even though she was like 30 years old when she gave birth. And it was not as easy at the age of 30 as it is at birth. So no, she's not as good at as her baby is. But her baby's now an adult, about 30, and they did a video, and they asked the mom, why did you learn sign language? And she says, it's my baby. I want to communicate with them in the way they can learn the best. So she wasn't worried about hearing mama. It wasn't about selfishness. It was about selflessness. And that's what a lot of parents do have in their heart, is they want to give to their kids the best. The best is sign language. Give them the best. Give them ASL. Give it to them. And if they're in another country and they use another sign language, use that. Provide them what they need. And what happened was that woman who was deaf, They asked her what they thought about their mom, who had learned sign language to provide it to them, to give them a best life. This woman was married, had children, had a degree, had a good career, and she signed. And you could see their faces. They love one another. So I'm asking you, love American babies. Learn sign language. You can do it. Yes, you can. I suck at language. I'm better at math, and I learned as best I can. And even if you only get a level 3 ASL PI test, if that's the best you can do, it sure is a heck of a lot better than saying, I can say thank you, and then forcing people to lip read. Please don't. Let the deaf person decide how they want to communicate with you. But for a baby, they don't have choice. It's up to you. And I urge you, don't hate American Sign Language. Don't regard it as lower than speaking. Don't consider it animal language. This is not Darwin's time. His time is over. Eugenics, let it die. Let eugenics die. Let's have equality and equity and full access for language acquisition for all children in America. That is what I am requesting of you. That is what I'm urging of you. Please contact the people in Congress and your legislature to support language acquisition rights for all children through American Sign Language. Thank you for listening.